Welcome to On the Offense, our bi-monthly award-winning, we think it's award-winning worthy podcast that we have now brought to you. This, I believe, is the 18th On the Offense podcast, brought to you by Jeff. Hi, Jeff.
John, how are you?
I'm good, and yourself?
Good. I haven't seen you at all today, so this is
Yeah,
strange.
exactly. On the Offense is where we typically take something in the news and apply it to our world of marketing and communications. And it didn't take long to determine which newsy thing that we were going to leverage, at least for the introductory part of this podcast. And that is the now infamous situation known as Coldplay Gate. We've all seen it. The CEO of Astronomer caught red-handed in, I suppose, Jeff, what we call a compromising position.
I think so. I think so.
It was fairly bluntly compromising, even though they were in public at a Coldplay concert.
Public.
But the person with whom he was caught in the compromising position just happened to be the head of human resources. I mean, you can't say this with a straight face.
That makes it even more absurd.
It does. The head of HR for his company, caught on the kiss cam, if you will, at whatever stadium they were at, Gillette Stadium, I think, where the Patriots play. Call it 65,000 people to whom they were exposed when Chris Martin, Coldplay's frontman, uttered the fantastic one. Little did he know, either they're having an affair or they're just really shy.
Really shy.
So we've talked offline before we turned the button on here. Well, how much should we get into this? And we've determined that we're going to leave it for introductory comments. We could do an entire podcast on Coldplay Gate.
Oh, I agree with that. It's
I mean,
just so absurd, but such a great example of something going viral so quickly. He
so
was out within 2 days.
so quickly. So the focus of this podcast is social media, the power of social media. It is a monster. It is a monster, and it will eat you if you're ready for it. And it consumed these two people, at least professionally, fairly quickly. So let me give you a couple of numbers just to talk about the speed of social media, the foot speed of this so-called monster, right? The original video was posted by one of the 65,000 people who went to Gillette Stadium on TikTok. That one post has now earned more than 10 million likes on its own, to the point where, and I don't have any notes on this, but I saw something the other day that implied that person who was the original poster may have a business opportunity for themselves to somehow monetize the post. Now, different podcast, not sure how, but it's just that person has become almost a celebrity to themselves, right? So more than 10 million likes on TikTok alone. But thanks to TikTok's algorithm, it went beyond TikTok and got reposted across various platforms. If you roll it all up, there's more than 30 million likes across all of the different social platforms.
Yikes.
30 million. And then, of course, again, different podcast, but maybe just a mention of Gwyneth Paltrow, right?
Well, that is one of the most brilliant PR related things and marketing escapades I've ever seen. It was brilliant on the part of Astronomer.
It really was. And Gwyneth Paltrow being the ex-wife of the Coldplay frontman.
Chris Martin, yeah.
This is a great, quoting our old boss's boss, Jeff. What a great way to turn chicken you-know-what into chicken salad, right? I saw great, right? I knew you'd like that. I saw a great comment on LinkedIn the other day. The value of the earned media alone, that, forget about the Gwyneth Paltrow post itself, the value of the earned media on the post alone makes it worth their while having done that. I say good for them. It's not like again, we could get so into this. There's a school of thought that says the company is culpable. Clearly, this couple was not in private with this alleged affair, but in reality, it's not like the company really did anything wrong. It's not like there was a problem with one of their products, uh, or somebody was caught embezzling money from the.
Right, right.
So why not be creative and try and turn it into a great opportunity to build awareness and definition of your company, especially if you're a company that is not overly well known.
Would
And
any of us know about this company had it not been for Coldplay Gate?
so I'll bet I have to assume that their demand generation funnel has gained a few crosses.
Yeah.
I suppose the moral of the story is be careful who you go to a concert with. You're going to be on the kiss cam. And it's also true. I mean, you can't go to a sporting event these days. The kiss cam. Like,
It's always there.
all right. Social media, the monster of social media. I'm going to turn it over to Jeff here to talk about the evolution of social media. It really has been fascinating to watch it go from something that was, kind of under the radar and at one point to the point now where it is literally the number one source of news in the United States. So tell us about that, Jeff.
Okay, so the early days, let's go back to the early days. And it doesn't seem that early, but it's the pre-2000s. You had the early networks. You had ArapNet, which was actually a government network within the US, which kind of formed the whole infrastructure for the internet. And then you got the instant messaging, you got AOL Instant Messenger and Microsoft Messenger and all that stuff. That started in 97. And then you got the early online communities, GeoCities, LiveJournal. It let the users create their own personal pages and blogs. So that's the early history. Then you get down a little bit further. You get to the rise of social networking. That would be from like 2000 to 2010. The first of the fairly big ones was Friendster, which was one of the first recognizable social networks, particularly in Asia. Then you come over to the US, we had MySpace, which has pretty much faded away, or I don't even know if it's still in existence, but it became the biggest site globally by 2006. And then you had Facebook, and any of you who saw the movie, it started at Harvard, and it was kind of a weird premise. They were rating the attractiveness of individuals, and then somehow it switched into what it's become. And by 2009, it was the most popular social network worldwide.
They
And
would
and
never,
frankly, it still is.
they would never do such things at Harvard. Please.
No, 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 no. Oh my God. And then you had YouTube, which was 2005, and that revolutionized video sharing and consumption. And then you got Twitter in 2006, which now has transitioned into X under the guidance of Elon Musk. And then finally, and it was here before all that, 2003 was LinkedIn, which is certainly something that John and I rely on, and it's focused on professional networking. Then let me just premise this by saying blah, blah, blah. You've got the mobile and app era from 2010 to 2020. You got Instagram, you got Snapchat, you got TikTok, which is huge. And you've got influencer culture. That's when the influencers came to the fore, as well as algorithmic feeds, which if you've been out there shopping for a job, you know how algorithms work. And that really is the basis behind a lot of the social platforms that we use today. So finally, here we are at the current era. And what's driving things? You've got AI, artificial intelligence integration, and the platforms that are being used for that. You've got decentralized platforms like Mastodon and Blue Sky, which promote federated, non-corporate alternatives to Twitter/X. You got video dominance. You've got TikTok, huge, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, and they continue to dominate attention spans, which I would say, if you go way back I think attention spans were a lot longer. They were a lot, they've become very short, let's say. I always used to call USA Today paper McNuggets because it kind of caters to that with small stories, instant news bites, all that good stuff.
They were ahead of their time.
They were ahead of their time. And it kind of ushered in a whole new era of, kind of short, pithy newspapers that rely heavily on graphics. And then you got the creators in economy maturity. Those aren't my words, but they have more tools like Patreon. Caroline, do I have that right? Is it Patreon?
Yes, Patreon is the name.
And then we've got
Yes.
NFTs and we've got direct fan engagement. And then we've got misinformation and regulation. You got governments worldwide are cracking down on harmful content, deep fakes, and foreign interference. And then finally, you've got Twitter and X, which are interesting, but you can see how dominated they are now by political opinion. And I've got to say, it's really interesting. If you go on a YouTube, there are certain videos that you can identify just by what they're about and by their length as being overly bot driven. You'll hear common words being mispronounced, even the names of the subjects being mispronounced.
Yeah.
And there are certain voices you'll hear over and over again. So finally, what's happening today? Well, you've got TikTok, which is still dominant in youth culture, but it's facing scrutiny here and in the EU. You got Threads by Meta, which is gaining traction as an alternative to Twitter and X.
Yeah.
AI avatars, AI generated influencers and avatars are going viral, and some have millions of followers. You got Meta Push, um, which is focused on extended reality, XR, for social interaction, though hype has cooled. You got privacy tools, things like Signal, Telegram, WhatsApp. I really didn't know too much about Signal until I was just doing a little background research for this. But it's kind of fascinating. You use email to push around content, and you've got complete control over it. So very interesting. And then you've got niche and private communities, like Discord, um, Geneva, Substack, and which Substack uses that same method of using emails. And they've got digital wellness. Um, so, conscious of screen time, misinformation, dopamine loops, and offline is making a comeback. So,
Dopamine loop.
loops, loops.
Wow.
Yeah, how about that? So, it's pretty interesting. Pretty
What
interesting.
what was the first one you said? Friendster?
Friendster, yeah,
Don't
way,
remember.
way back. And
Don't remember.
that was most popular, I think I said in Asia.
Ah, okay. All right.
Asia, I think China. So there
Well,
you go. You got the whole history there. Now
that's
I'll let you dive in here, John. But one last thought is these viral things that happen. It's kind of like the old Andy Warhol saying that everyone's going to be famous for 15 minutes. You're famous or infamous for 15 minutes.
well, and these people from Astronomer, I mean, I'm not sure how many people know their names, but people are going to remember their faces for a lot longer than,
Oh, absolutely. And the
and
backs of their
they're
heads.
and they're going to remember their reaction to the realization that they were on camera, right? It's one of those things that's going to go down in social media history, in pop culture.
Absolutely.
It,
Absolutely.
it, it is one. It's just one of those things that you just know immediately. It's kind of like, oh, you watch a game, that's an instant classic. This
Absolutely.
this was a milestone moment in social media and pop culture history. It's that's the case when it's already being memed and stuff like that, right? So anyway, and in fact, Jeff and I tried to arrange in advance a photo shoot where I could stand with my arms around him. No, I'm kidding. We weren't going to do it. So let's
That's what we do weekly, John. It's nothing new if we did
yeah,
that
it's like any other
photo
team,
shoot.
right? So, all right, let's talk about this. Like I said, that what you just described is the evolution of a monster, right? This thing,
Monster.
this is a bowl of spaghetti. Like, where do you even begin? If you're a marketer, right? You're a company who needs to get the word out to your target audience. Where do you even begin with that ball of string, right? So
Yeah,
let's
no,
talk
you
about,
don't. No.
so I mentioned earlier that social media is now the number one source of news in the United States, probably true globally. This was not news to me, but it did come out in a Reuters study earlier this month. And I say this month, we're recording on July 31st. You'll all see this the week of August, whatever that is, 4th. So by the time you see this, it will have been last month. But a new study from Reuters saying, and these numbers are fascinating, 54% of US adults get their news from social media per Reuters, the Reuters Institute 2025 Digital News Report. 54% social media sites, not entertainment, news, right? Second source of news, according to this study, is TV news. 50. Now, I'm assuming that's national TV news, which still has a lot of numbers. People say, oh, that's old news. I mean,
It does.
there's still a lot of people watching it. I'm sure it includes local news as well, though, right?
Well,
But
absolutely. Probably less so among Gen Xers now.
probably, good point. Yeah. There's a whole demographic subset to this discussion, by the way. So you'll have to take this with a little bit of a grain of salt, depending on who you are, your age, your station in life, et cetera, because there are demographic cuts that make things a little different here. But
Right.
54% news from social media, 50% from TV, and 48%. And I'm actually, frankly, surprised that this is third behind TV news. 48% of people get their news from news websites and apps. I would have thought that that would be above TV news at this point. But
Yeah, I use, we talked about it before. It's not really a social network, but I use Google News as an aggregator to get my news every day.
sure. Yeah. I mean, and that's a good example of I'm surprised it's not higher than TV news. Now, okay. So if you have news to report, you as a marketer, you as a communicator, you have to understand that this is where people are going to get their news and information, right? That's fine. What's the other side of that coin? The other side of that coin, and I think we talked about this on a different podcast, Jeff. It's one thing to say, oh, nobody trusts traditional media anymore, but they have gates set up, gating systems for truth set up and accuracy that social media does not. Maybe it will someday. It ain't there yet, folks, right? This very same study from Reuters says about 3/4, 73% of people surveyed are worried that they can't distinguish via social media news, via news they get through a social media platform. They can't distinguish between what's false and what's true. That is ridiculous and pathetic.
Mm-hmm.
The number one source, this is a problem. The number one source of news, 3/4 of the people who are going there don't know what's fake and what's not.
Well,
This,
the problem is if they don't care. That's the
well,
problem.
many maybe don't care because they trust the source, and that's the source from which they get their news. Many just don't have time, right? Attention span, you're right. Attention span has shrunken big time over the last, call it generation or whatever.
Oh,
But
yeah.
that's really a problem. And so I've said this so many times, and Gelman, our producer here, has heard it from me in our personal lives as well. Gelman is my daughter. I think you all know that, but one of the kids will say she's sending us notes. Ha ha. A lot of times, one of the kids will say, "Did you hear about this?" And the first question I ask is always, "What's the source? What's the source?" People may not trust the New York Times or the LA Times or whatever it is. but it's still true, whether you trust them or not, that stuff's going to be more accurate from them more consistently than it's going to be from a social media site. It just is. But regardless, I'm just saying that's the other side of the coin. That's where people are. That's where the eyeballs are, period, full stop. But you just have to really work hard sometimes to distinguish between what's real and what's not. So, all right, that's fine. Social media. What is the key to social media? If you are a marketer, you're a communicator, you're a company who has decided, okay, number one source of news, and we're putting a lot more of our marketing budget for advertising and other things onto these channels, okay? What channels should we be using? Where should we be putting our content, right? What types of content should we be putting out there to get the best bang for our buck, right? I argue this, that the key to your social strategy needs to start with a very basic question. Is our goal here in using social media as a channel for news and information, is it primarily awareness or is it acquisition? Awareness or acquisition? If it is acquisition, meaning your primary goal, not your only goal, but your primary goal from putting all this content on social media is acquisition, meaning you want to sell stuff. You want this content to result in sales. You typically, well, a couple of things. One is the content needs to be acquisition focused. And there's certain types of content that is much more acquisition focused than other types of content, right? If you are wanting to get people to your website and into your funnel to become a prospect, based in part, at least on your social media content, solution-oriented information is the most important thing you can get out there, right? Now, if your goal is awareness, you're trying to build your reputation, get more noticed for being a company that cares about X or Y, that's different. And companies that want to focus on that don't need to focus so much of their content on acquisition focused content around solutions or products. It's actually an easier thing to do. It's the basic stuff, right? We have a new CEO. We have a new astronomer. We have a new CEO. We have a new head of human resources. It could be community-driven stuff, you know. And the lighter hearted it is, the more likes you're going to get. People want authenticity. They want to see that a company cares, right? All this kind of stuff. And that's the kind of content, almost regardless of the platform it's on, that people do respond to, like, maybe even get some shares, right? Community-oriented stuff. So if your goal is awareness and reach and followers, hey, have fun, go nuts all day long. This community thing, look at this employee event we did, look at how much we care about the community, look at what good people we are. That's all really great if acquiring followers is your primary goal. But if your primary goal is to get sales or at least people to your website, that stuff doesn't drive people to the website. They like you more, but they're not doing much about it, right? Let me give you an example. I was at a company in recent years where we had done what we thought was a pretty darn good job at getting a lot of social content out into the market. And this is a company that needed to build awareness, was trying to build more definition of what it's about. And so we were essentially flooding the market with positivity, with good stuff, right? And this is, you know, content that nobody would really have an argument with, right? And our followers were going through the roof, right? But all of a sudden, the leadership of the company was looking at me going, And I was still fairly new at the time. In fact, I was brand new. And they were looking at me going, well, this is great, John, but are we getting any business out of this? Right. Well, we worked with an outside agency and we changed. And what we did was based on research and data. We evolved our content fairly significantly to be much more acquisition focused and less focused on what I'm calling somewhat generically community stuff, right? So it wasn't like we were saying we don't want to build followers at all, but we were moving the pendulum to the point, it was about 20% of our content when I got there was, again, generically speaking, community focused, more focused on building followers. I'm sorry, 80% awareness driven. We switched, we didn't go 80-20 to 20-80, but we got it to the point where about 60% instead of 20 was really more acquisition oriented as opposed to community oriented, right? That was very much done on design because we realized that, okay, if this is the goal, if this is what the company says it wants, we have to shift our content accordingly. Does that make sense, Jeff?
It does, John. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But the other thing I throw in there is it also matters who you're trying to appeal to. If you're trying to sell to a younger audience, maybe you want to focus on getting influencers and TikTokers out there and using humor, some quick hitting ad.
Yeah.
But might not even look like an ad. And that may attract that group of people to buy your product. When you're older, more mature, more weathered, I don't know what you want to say, but you're gonna grasp onto traditional advertising more than younger people who are just kind of coming up in the world. So
Yeah.
it's all about your demographics and the communities you live in.
No question about it. That's a great comment. By the way, is there a group of people out there who are, would you say, older, more weathered, and less mature? Because that's kind of us.
Well, that would be me.
I'll tell you, here's what, this is a quick aside to our loyal listeners. We're perfectly mature. We're somewhat weathered, okay, and we're somewhat mature until college football starts.
Well, that is true.
And guess what, Jeff? 1 month from yesterday, college football starts.
I know.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
I don't know if I'm ready,
I'm
but you
not.
did see me. We were doing a couple conference calls yesterday, and I had on my authentic Penn State football jersey.
I thought that was impressive. Little did you know you were doing that 1 month from kickoff to the day.
I'm ready.
College football is life, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, and tonight they made a big deal out of it. Is the Hall of Fame NFL football game, which is in Canton, Ohio.
Really?
Every year. Now, no one of note ever plays in it because they play all the rookies, but that is tonight.
Who's playing?
It is the Detroit Lions against the Los Angeles Chargers.
Who will always be the San Diego Chargers? Give me a break.
Oh, I know. Their fan base is there.
I know. By the way, did you know that the San Diego, now LA Chargers, started out as the Los Angeles Chargers?
Yes.
A lot
Yes,
of
I do know
people.
that.
So in a way, they've actually kind of gone home, right?
That is true.
Anyway, the other comment I'd make, this is another example from my personal experience with social, is that even if, let's say your goal is building awareness, and now I'm giving you an example from a different I was at in recent years. Let's say your goal is building awareness, and this was our goal, was to build the brand in this part of the marketing mix through social media, okay?
Mhm.
We started getting diminishing returns. Hey, our followers have gone up and up and up, and now they're kind of going up. But it's the rate of acquisition followership is really slowing down. And we had a new firm at that point that we worked with, and we really dug into it with them. You know what we found out? We found out we were actually and this is still shocking in hindsight, but it actually makes sense if you think about it. We were actually putting out too much content. And it's easy to think that your strategy's correct, you're aligned, the type of content is the right type of content for this, in this case, building followers. You can go too far, and you can get to the point where it's starting to become wallpaper for people.
Right.
And it's kind of, okay,
Scamming your audience.
Another post, right? And so they counseled us, and we were all in on pulling back. And I want to say we pulled back about a third. We pulled back about a third of our content. Again, it was the right type of content. There was just too much. So that's another thing, that I'd offer to our listeners is make sure your strategy's right. Are you primarily awareness focused or acquisition focused? Depending on the answer to that, your content needs to align with that. But even if that's all set up, be careful of too much content, because people only have so much time, and God only knows how many different companies are coming across on their scroll, right?
Yeah, I can see where certain things will tire you out.
Uh,
Here's a
yeah.
thought, though. As a precursor to viral activity on social networks, can you identify who this person is? Steve Bartman.
Steve Bartman, the Cubs,
Exactly.
the Bartman ball.
Yeah. People remember him to this day, and they still resent him. Now he's kind of improved his appeal to folks because of time, most likely. But if you don't know the story, this is when the Cubs were still sad sacks. They hadn't won anything.
Right.
And there was a ball that one of their guys was pursuing in foul territory, and he reaches up to catch it. And this fan, Steve Bartman, sticks his arm out there and grabs the ball. Um, that was viewed as this heinous activity, this crime, denying the Cubs of a probable victory. And, all of a sudden he was a villain in Chicago.
Well, and there you go, social media, right? It
Yep.
just
And
goes.
that just spread. You didn't need the internet for that to spread.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, I mean, in defense of poor Steve Bartman, okay, I don't think he did anything that any other fan wouldn't do.
Just reflexively, yeah.
If
Yeah.
you look at where his hand was, it was barely, if at all, over the edge of the stance. It's not like he reached out like those Yankee fans did to the Dodger guy in the World Series.
True.
Stupid Yankee fans. Actually, I can think of one specific Yankee fan, and you know who you are out there who listens to every podcast, and I think I may have just offended him. But let me just say aggressive Yankee fans. But the Cubs guy put his mitt into the stance again, and he was going to catch the ball. But I don't think Bartman did anything that any of us wouldn't have done, right? The other thing that has helped him over time is, let's face it, they finally won the damn series.
Absolutely. Once that happened, the shackles were off.
Exactly. So, all right. So let's keep moving through this. This is a fun conversation. Social media has just become this huge, I keep saying monster, but it's not all monster in a bad way.
No.
The power, again, as most recently exemplified by Coldplay, Kate, in our lifetime, I'm not sure if it's ever going to do anything but continue to go up. But let's talk about YouTube for a minute. We haven't talked a lot about YouTube yet. We also haven't talked a ton about Facebook. Facebook is the number one. If you're talking pure volume, monthly average users, or monthly active users, Facebook is number one at about 3 billion. 3 billion, right?
That's a significant percentage of the population of the Earth. I think we're 8.8 billion now.
Exactly.
3 billion is a big chunk.
So, a third of the people on the planet Earth are visiting Facebook on a monthly basis, right? It's just, and those are actually more than that, because those are the monthly active users.
Right.
How many times each one, right? What's number two, though? YouTube is now at 2.5. 2.5 billion monthly active users. And one of the things, and we want to talk about examples here, and we, Clients First, actually has our own, we actually have our own example in real time on the value of YouTube. The YouTube algorithm rewards volume. The more you post, and long form video content is what YouTube is all about. You can do shorter form, but they're really good with long form video content, which a podcast essentially is. Their algorithm rewards volume by exposing your content to more and more users all the time. And that's what, based on our own numbers, is exactly what's happening with our own podcast. The last two in a row, actually the last podcast we did has set the record for the most number of views at about 2,000 after a week. We were really happy with that. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for doing that. And the one before that was at 1,700. And Gelman, who's our resident expert, is convinced, and we tend to agree, that it's because, the content has to be good. 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 That never changes, whether you're talking about social or earned media or website content, right? But let's assume the content is good. We hope our content is good.
It's good.
The algorithm, though, is your friend. The more you post, the more you get exposed. I'm just talking YouTube at this point. And that's pretty fantastic to think about that. Now, I'm just realizing, I'm hearing myself talk out loud, and I'm wondering if I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth. The YouTube, on one hand, YouTube algorithm, the more you post, the more people you're exposed to thanks to the algorithm. On the other hand, I'm saying, at least, maybe this is just a LinkedIn comment. Don't post too much. So
I think that's right. Don't post too much.
Sweet spot. That's what Caroline or Gelman is saying to us. I suppose that's probably true.
I think it's true. She threw up another interesting stat there that we talked about earlier about ads and all that exposure on the social networks.
Yeah.
And here's her stat. The average person is estimated to be exposed to between 4,000 and 10,000 ads per day. And that speaks to wanting your content to be intentional but succinct. So I think that's incredible. 4,000 to 10,000 per day. Why are our attention spans short? There you go.
Well, there you go. And that's just on Facebook. No, I'm kidding. It is true that volume is volume is volume, I guess, right? It is true that, like I said, Facebook is the number one platform in terms of monthly active users. It is also true, there is a school of thought, at least, that says Facebook is one too many ads, right? And I'm being a lot of ads, right? Well, but why is that? Because of the volume, because of the numbers, right? So let's think about this. So we talked about social media sites as being number one for news. Okay, what about where marketers are going for marketing purposes, including advertising? Where are they placing ads, right? There's another survey that came out this month, as of today, it must be survey month, Jeff, that says that 83% of marketers worldwide surveyed reported using Facebook for marketing purposes. 83%, huge number. Instagram, which we also haven't talked much about here, was second at 78. LinkedIn third at 69, right? And now that's fine. There's also a school of thought that says Facebook, okay, it's got the 3 billion, but its pace is slowing, largely because of demographics. I'm sure there's data on this. I don't have the data in front of me. And some of it may be too many ads, and people are kind of pulling away from that. They want more authentic content. They want more heartfelt content. They don't want to be hit over the head with ads. What'd you say, 4 to 10,000 a day?
4 to 10,000 a day.
That's amazing. Contrast that with YouTube, and YouTube to me is such an interesting case study when it comes to social media. You know, they're now number 2.5 billion monthly active users. They're really good at long form content, which not every other social media channel is, right?
Right.
They have a niche, right? But according to the same study, 60% of responding marketers intend to increase their organic use of YouTube for marketing purposes over the coming year. So a lot of money is going to YouTube right now. And that says a lot. It's one thing to have the numbers where they are, but are you growing, right? YouTube is exploding right now, right? And we're just a good example. We're a small town example of that, but I think there's something going on there. What do you think about that?
Well, it's interesting because I think, YouTube's traditional spot has been really good long form videos. But even YouTube sees the need to diversify. And if you go on to YouTube now, you'll see a string of short videos,
Good point.
which is really interesting. So they can cater to both crowds right now. And I think they're smart.
All right. How about some takeaways?
Okay.
Number one, social media, like I said, it's a monster.
It is a monster.
Be smart with your decisions out there. I'm talking primarily corporate decisions.
Right.
Be smart with your content. Be up to date with your crisis plans.
Oh, yeah.
Because the monster of social media will eat you if you are not prepared. You know the analogy I have in my mind? Just
No.
so crude, but I'm sorry. Like I said, I'm a little bit less mature than you. Not even close.
Now, if you know me, you know how absurd that statement is, but that's okay.
Fair point. Here's the image I have in my mind in terms of how quickly social media can consume you. Jurassic Park, here comes the T-Rex, the man sitting on the toilet. You remember that scene?
I do remember that scene.
He was immediately consumed and was over.
Well,
that's what happened to the astronomer CEO.
He got immediately consumed.
Right? The T-Rex ate them. Not all, but largely because of social media. That's number one. Number two, certain channels are better for certain things, right? It's no different than an ad schedule, right? You typically want to have a mix of multiple outlets, right? But it depends on who your target user is. Absolutely, Jeff, you mentioned demographics, right? We could really go deep on putting together a social media paid and owned schedule together based on demographics and user profiles and subgroups within LinkedIn and different platforms. That could be a podcast and a half. That actually sounds more like a LinkedIn learning class, right?
It does.
But you know, these are channels to the public. You have to prioritize. You have to know what your strategy is first, as we've talked about, and then you can prioritize your content accordingly. I suppose the takeaway comment on that is all social media is not created the same.
No, it isn't.
You know, social media, well, they're all different, right? And then I think the last thing I'd say, and then I'll look to you for your takeaways, is, okay, it's a monster, it's going to eat you, be careful, blah, blah, blah. The glass is half full here, ladies and gentlemen. It is what it is. Social media is here to stay. It's going to become more and more, I believe it's going to be no different than television, right? Back in the old days and in the dark ages, you know, you just had the networks, and then here comes cable, and now there's streaming, and now there's this, and now there's that, right? TV and TV type of media became more niched, right? And you could target your content much more carefully and tightly. And I believe that's where social media is going to go. Again, like you don't have to, if you want to advertise on LinkedIn, or if you want to expose organic content on LinkedIn, you don't necessarily have to just go to all of LinkedIn. You can go to subgroups on LinkedIn, right? And so the glass is half full. Make it work for you, right? This is where the eyeballs are. And the eyeballs more and more are going where they want to go, where they're getting their specific content. You know, that is troubling when it comes to politics and echo chambers and all of that. But we're not talking about that kind of stuff here. We're talking about, you got a shoe to sell, you got a new app to sell, you are some sort of IT service. Make this work for you, and it's just like an advertising and media schedule. You have to know why you want to do it. You have to align your content accordingly, and you have to go after the right channels and the right sub channels. All social media is not created equal. Over to you.
I mean, everything has changed. Everything's going to continue to change. And the better you get your arms around where things are going, the better you're going to do. Like John said, creativity is huge here. You got to figure out how to utilize these social channels. So I think that's as much as I can come up with. I think I've talked way too much and I need a drink of water or something stronger. John?
Something stronger. Yeah, sounds good. You know who has, let me just close on your last comment, was you got to figure out how to use the stuff, the social stuff. You know who's figured out how to use it more than anybody else are the influencers, right?
They have.
Social media influencers are now stars. They have figured out how to monetize this. Remember, we talked about the person who first did the post at the Patriots Stadium that started Coldplay. A lot of people saying, oh, that person might be able to monetize this, right? So you shouldn't really have a podcast discussion about social media and not talk about influencers. We decided before this podcast to not get into that because we feel like it deserves its own podcast. So we might do the next podcast in a couple of weeks on influencers only. And that is a fascinating topic about who are the influencers per channel and why, what content is playing from them, things like that, right? So more to come on influencers. We will continue to talk about social media as we go over subsequent podcasts as well. We are very passionate about social. We and people in our network are quite good at taking a company and or solution and determining what types of social media channels are best for that solution and or that leader and or that company. And we look forward to engaging with you on that. So with that, I thank you all for listening. More to come on the topic. Please, 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 speaking of social media, take a moment if you like this content and consider following us on all of our social channels. We are on all of the biggest ones.
Absolutely, we are.
And you can also subscribe directly to this podcast on YouTube, where all of our original content, podcast content resides. So we thank you. Let us know what you think and keep watching. See y'all later.
Tell your friends.